name, likeliness, and voice during this meeting. You are also given consent to the use and distribution of any personally identifiable information that you or others may disclose during today's meeting. Please do not disclose personal health information. The webcast can be found in archives after the meeting on YouTube or the CMS Ustream website, and I believe it's there permanently. A few housekeeping rules on today. I would like to let you guys know that the restrooms are down the hall to your left. If you continue out on there to the lobby and make a right turn by the elevators and continue straight down the stairwell, you will find a coffee cart there, and then you will also find our cafeteria. For security reasons, we have been asked to remind you that visitors may not enter any areas other than the public areas, which is this lobby here and a lower level lobby in the cafeteria. Otherwise, you will have to be escorted by an employee who works here. If any of you will need assistance today in arranging for a taxi service, please see the concierge in the lobby. CMS is a non-smoking campus. There are smoking areas outside of both of the guard stations. At this time, we would like to ask that you would please put all BlackBerries and cell phones on silent or cut them off. We would like to ask that all speakers and anyone answering questions will step up to the microphone so that everyone can hear you. This includes those that are inside participants and outside participants. We would also like to ask everyone's cooperation in sticking to your appropriate time. For primary speakers, that time is 15 minutes. For 5-minute speakers, you have 5 minutes. I will be keeping track of your time via stop clock on my cell phone. For 15-minute speakers, as we approach the 2-minute mark, I will gently ring a bell, and you will hear that bell, and that will indicate to you to begin wrapping up. As your 15 minutes exhaust, I will stand and begin to approach the podium. For 5-minute speakers, I will simply stand when your 5 minutes has exhausted and begin to approach the podium. Speakers may not call on other speakers, only I can call speakers. You may not designate any unused time to any other speaker. We will call a coffee break and a lunch break today at appropriate times based on how our meeting is progressing. At this time, I would like to introduce Cindy Hake. She is the Deputy Director of CM's Division of DemiPost Policy and of the CMS National HCPCS Level 2 HCPCS program. She will provide opening remarks and a brief description of the background and purpose of today's public meeting. Cindy Hake.
Thank you, Felicia. Good morning, everybody. I was thinking about you all yesterday evening as I was walking out to my car at the end of the day, and the wind blew my umbrella inside out and was also kind enough to actually close my car door for me. And I thought that some of you may have been, on a plane trying to land at that exact time, and I was hoping you wouldn't have a very bumpy landing. But we're very glad that you're with us today. So we have with us today members of CMS's HCPCS Workgroup, representing all government and non-government insurance sectors, representatives of manufacturers and suppliers of some of the items on today's agenda, government relations, regulatory and compliant and payment personnel from various provider organizations, industry consultants, clinical specialists. Every once in a while we have a member of the press join us. This forum for discussion of HCPCS code application arose out of the Benefits Improvement and Performance Act of 2000, which pertained originally just to DME, durable medical equipment, but we later expanded the forum along with a series of other improvements as part of a broader plan for a more open and transparent HCPCS coding process. As many of you know, Level 2 HCPCS is only one of 6 standard national code sets adopted under the under HIPAA for use in electronic claims processing. In instituting a public component for coding considerations, and particularly in instituting this process where we take comments that acts as a reconsideration opportunity. CMS took the lead in across the board in terms of maintaining the HCPCS code says and being progressive. And we're always looking for ways to make our processes more efficient and effective, and we welcome ideas from you for enhancements to our coding procedures. Speaking of which, based on feedback we've received over the past year or so, we've developed plans to implement several new mechanisms of adding transparency to our coding process, which I'm happy to talk about today. First, as Felicia mentioned, we're now employing live stream technology to enable remote attendance to these public hearings. Secondly, we're announcing our plans to initiate a web-based notice and comment opportunity for input on certain internal HCPCS coding requests. Specifically, we'll be starting out with a limited demonstration that applies to internal requests to discontinue Level 2 HCPCS codes, specifically those that are not already the subject of other ways to gather comments, and those that are not replaced by other codes or new codes. And via this demonstration, we'll provide advance notice regarding internal decisions to discontinue HCPCS codes, if we have any, and an opportunity for public input into these decisions. The demonstration will provide an opportunity not only to gather input from the public on these internal decisions, but also for CMS to gather critical data related to logistics, timing, and resources that would be involved in adding a public component for internal requests. Naturally, we need to find an appropriate balance between the need to have a transparent process and our need, of course, to be nimble in making coding changes to improve program administration. Naturally, CMS reserves the right to make immediate changes without notice and take comments later when we have a national program operating need to do that. The first year of this demonstration is this year. After the demonstration, CMS will consider the results of the demonstration and consider further whether we'll be able to have the open process for some internal requests. The timing and logistics of this demonstration will be as follows. We'll publish a summary of the internal requests that I spoke about on the HCPCS website by July 1st. We'll allow 3-week comment period, and therefore comments will be due by July 21st. We're going to establish a centralized mailbox through which to take those comments, and they'll be handled from there. So please do not submit comments to any of the HCPCS staff's individual mailboxes. To be sure that they're handled appropriately, they should go to the centralized mailbox that we'll be setting up. We'll re-review the internal requests together with the input received, and the final decisions will be folded into our outgoing annual update. Additional details about this demonstration are available on our website. The third new mechanism for promoting transparency is that we're in the process of developing a mechanism to share information pertaining to final decisions and rationale for individual HCPCS code applications. We don't quite know what that's going to look like yet, but we do plan to implement that this year. Now back to the presentation that I normally do in the beginning of these meetings, which is an overview of the HCPCS processes that lead up to this meeting and of the expectations for this meeting. Before the public meeting, CMS's HCPCS Workgroup reviews all the applications before us, and we formulate the preliminary decisions that you've seen on our website and that are in your agendas. The workgroup includes members who provide input based on their perspective of the national program operating needs of Medicare, Medicaid, the private insurance sector, and the Veterans Administration. CMS publishes these preliminary coding decisions along with our decision-making rationale in advance of the meetings, and then via this forum, we invite applicants and others to provide testimony to either support or refute our preliminary decisions. And as such, this public meeting process is a reconsideration opportunity within the original coding cycle. Final decisions are not made at this meeting. After the public meetings, the HCPCS Workgroup reconvenes to re-review all the applications before us, together with the input we received. And CMS's staff will also reconsider the Medicare pricing recommendations as we begin to formulate final coding decisions. Sometimes decisions are changed based on the input that we get via these public forums, and that confirms the value and importance of these meetings as part of the overall coding process. For those of you providing comments today, if you haven't already done so, please be sure to get to our public meeting coordinator, Jen Carver, before the end of the day, a summary that includes your chief points that you'll be making today. We use that information not only in the work group's review, but also to make sure that as we publish our public meeting summaries, we've captured those points that are most important to you. The public meeting summaries will be published on CMS's website sometime in August. They look very much like the agendas that you have before you. They include a description of the request, the preliminary decision, and then they will also include the chief points made by our primary speakers. Final decision letters and the HCPCS annual update will be released by mid-November. In addition, this year, as I mentioned, we'll be having some form of notification of the final decisions for all the individual applications together with our rationale. And that will come out at about the same time as the decision letters and the annual update. So let me conclude by saying thanks to you again for taking the time out of your busy schedules to be with us. We're very glad you're here. We always appreciate the diverse perspectives that are shared with us at these public meetings, and they do add a lot to our considerations after the public meetings as we formulate our final decisions. I did mention that sometimes our decisions are in fact reversed or changed based on this input provided to us. So based on that, we think that this forum also must matter to you, and that it's worthwhile for you to be a part of this opportunity to provide your input into our decisions. And in that vein, we look forward to your full participation today. Thank you.
At this time, I would like to introduce Joe Kaiser. He is the Director of the Division of DMEPOS Policy in CM's Chronic Policy Group. He will provide an overview of payment for DMEPOS payment. A more detailed description of payment is attached to your agenda. Joe Kaiser.
Hello, good morning. I'm Joel Kaiser. I'm the Director of the Division of DMEPOS Policy. For those of you who don't know, DMEPOS is an acronym within the Medicare program. It identifies a group of Part B, Medicare Part B device and supply benefits. The acronym was created to describe these items. The processing of these claims, Medicare claims for these items, is the responsibility of 4 regional carriers, our DME, Medicare Administrative Contractors. And the DMEPOS acronym was used to describe the items and services they process claims for, but it's become more widely adopted to identify these various Medicare Part B benefit categories. As far as Medicare is concerned, of course, we need HCPCS codes to identify these items and services so that our contractors can process the claims that we receive for these items and services. In addition to managing general HCPCS editorial process, the Division of DMEPOS Policy also implements the Medicare payment rules as well as the scope of benefit rules. For Medicare, an item or service has to fall under a defined Medicare benefit. It's defined in the statute, further defined in the regulations. If an item or service doesn't fall into one of these benefit categories, there's no Medicare benefit. So that's an important distinction in terms of HCPCS coding. For our purposes, we may have a need for a code to identify an item or service that falls under a benefit. We may actually have a need to identify an item or service that doesn't fall under benefit, so we can process the claims efficiently. As Felicia indicated, there's a handout that describes the different DMEPOS benefit categories and also the payment rules that go along with those. Medicare statute mandates payment on a fee schedule basis for most DMEPOS items. The statute is very specific about how the fee schedules are to be calculated. They are the exclusive payment rules for the statute. So in developing preliminary payment determinations, our flexibility is limited to what the statute requires and what we can do with regard to implementing those requirements. The statute requires that the fee schedules be calculated based on average allowed charges for DMEPOS items under the previous reasonable charge payment method. Those average reasonable charges are then updated by annual update factors also set forth in the statute. Fee schedule amounts for new items for which historic charge data is not available are calculated based on an administrative process referred to as gap filling. In the gap filling process, we try to replicate those average reasonable charges that the statute mandates that we use in calculating the fees. In doing so, traditionally we've used either fees for comparable items or we've used supplier price lists to estimate what Medicare would have paid during the reasonable charge period. So for the purpose of the meetings today, we want to receive public consultation not only on the HCPCS determination, the preliminary HCPCS determination, but also the Medicare payment determinations that are also provided as preliminary determinations for each agenda item. We appreciate receiving your feedback on these preliminary payment determinations that we have developed for today's agenda. Thank you.
At this time, I would like to introduce other CMS HCPCS staff. When I say your name, I would ask that you would stand, please. Kimberly Combs Miller. She is the HCPCS Workgroup Meeting Coordinator. Laurie Jackson. And Jennifer Carver, you may have seen before. Oh, there she is. I didn't see you. Sorry, Jen. Okay, Jen is the Public Meeting Coordinator. So together, the three of them worked very hard to put together all the thousands of details necessary in order to provide this opportunity for all of your comments. Jen is also responsible for opening the meeting to a wider audience by instituting the live stream for the HCPCS public meetings this year. I would like to also introduce Dr. Subhash Dugarala. He is the medical advisor to the CMS HCPCS Workgroup. And at this time, we would like to thank the man behind the booth. Well, today there are two men, Charles Hirsch and Jim McKenzie. They handle all of our audio video needs. Today, I would like to describe how the meeting will proceed. Everyone should have received a meeting agenda upon sign-in. If you have not received one, there are still copies available out on the table. For each item on today's agenda, there is a written summary of the application and CMS's preliminary coding decision. The meeting will proceed one agenda item at a time until we have completed. We will also hear a presentation from the registered primary speaker and the 5-minute speaker if there is one, after which we will take any questions. When the speakers come forth, we would like to ask that you would state who you represent, your relationship to the applicant or to the manufacturer. We would like you to also declare in your oral presentation and in your written summary whether or not you have any financial involvement with the manufacturers or any competitors of any items or services being discussed. This includes any payment, salary, or benefits provided to the speaker or by the manufacturer. We would like you to state whether you agree or disagree with the preliminary decision when you begin your discussion. In summarizing your comments, we would like to ask that you would state your rationale for the agreement or disagreement. After we have heard from all registered speakers, we will invite discussion and questions specifically related to that item. Now we would like to begin. Today's first item is attachment number 14.60. This is a request to establish a new Level 2 HCPCS code to identify medical food, trade name Metanks. Attachment number 14.61, request to establish a new Level 2 HCPCS code to identify a medical food, trade name Deplin. And attachment number 14.62, request to establish a new Level 2 HCPCS code to identify medical food, trade name Cerefolin NAC caplets. Primary speaker is Mark Fluid.
Thank you, Felicia. I'm Mark Flewitt. I'm employed by Nestle Health Science, PAM Lab Incorporated. I serve as the Vice President of National Accounts and have just a few very brief comments. First of all, we do agree, and we would like to use this opportunity to say thank you for your consideration of the work group of these requests and also for the preliminary decision. We really have no further comment other than to say thank you again for your hospitality.
There is no 5-minute speaker for this item. The next agenda item, item number 2, is attachment 14.59, request to establish a new Level 2 HCPCS code to identify a nutritional shake for medical malnutrition that can be taken orally and via enteral tube, trade name ENU. There is no primary speaker and no 5-minute speaker. Agenda item number 3. Attachment number 14.63, request to establish 4 new Level 2 HCPCS codes to identify ostomy pouches that have a pre-attached standard wear hydrocolloid barrier with a waterproof foam pad cushion collar. Attachment number 14.64, request to split existing code A4396 into 3 codes based on varying belt width by revising the text of code A4396 and establishing 2 new HCPCS Level 2 codes. Trade names for the products are New Hope Original Flat Panel New Support Belt and New Hope New Form Support Belts. Attachment number 14.65, request to establish 4 new Level 2 HCPCS codes to identify ostomy pouches with an extended wear barrier with foam cushion and hydrocolloid collar. Trade names for the products, New Hope New Comfort 43 series, New Hope New Comfort 46 series, and New Hope New Comfort 48 series. Primary speaker is Estelle Galindo.
I would like to thank Jennifer Carver, the Public Meeting Coordinator, and the CMS staff for this opportunity to briefly address you regarding the preliminary decisions on the agenda request items. My name is Estelle Galindo, and I've been a registered nurse since 1969 and a certified wound ostomy continence nurse for 35+ years. I have taught and continue to teach WOC nurses and related healthcare providers on a regional and national level on how to best manage challenging ostomy and hernia situations. My husband was the owner of New Hope Laboratories Incorporated, and due to his untimely death, I inherited and own New Hope. I work per diem as a CWOC nurse at the USC Keck Cancer Hospital and Center, and at New Hope. My main function is that of being a CWOCN nurse prior to and since my husband's death. I am here to refute the current coding recommendations. The proposed change to the way these products are coded would first benefit the wearers, so that it is possible for them to obtain the pouches and supports that best manage their needs. The DME supplier, secondly, will have a way to provide the customers the products that meet their needs, and of course will allow New Hope to continue to manufacture those appliances. with a PowerPoint presentation, I would like to first address items 14.063 and 14.065 together to show some common situations that persons with ostomies encounter. Many people using the mass-produced products are buying additional hydrocolloid barriers to add to their pouches or bodies in an effort to make the body fit the pouch to get a good seal. Because of the unique formability of the New Hope pouching system, the pouch fits the body. And with the addition of the hydrocolloid barrier to the pouch, not only is it a convenience for the wearer, the need for the wearer to have to go out and buy additional barriers is virtually eliminated. Pre-attaching the barrier during the production of the New Hope appliance also helps in forming the barrier to the appliance. So I would like to demonstrate the unique properties of the foam, which has been given an extended wear barrier code, show the necessary indications for the use of a hydrocolloid with a pre-attached foam pad, and demonstrate the unique properties of the pouches, and then go on to state the different needs for the different types of hydrocolloid barriers. And then a little bit later, I'll go on to the hernia support part. This is showing a situation where when a person is standing, their stoma is readily available, but when they sit or bend, the stoma gets lost in a deep crease or fold in the waistline. And when they bend, looking for that PowerPoint. Okay. In that area of the crease is where they typically will leak. And if they use a very flexible barrier unsupported pouch, what happens is the barrier will buckle and they quickly leak in that crease line. If they use a rigid convex or rigid flat type appliance, again, when the person bends, it's going to pop away and they're going to leak in that crease line. With the New Hope appliance, because it's manufactured, it's not a mold injected, it's a different process, the pouch can be bent, and then it actually teaches the pouch to bend and go down and support in the crease line when the person bends and moves, so they don't leak in that crease. So here's a situation where we have someone with a flush retracted stoma in a recessed area. They require convexity, and when they sit up, they develop a crease line going to the umbilicus. Typically that's a leak point, and they have to use extra hydrocolloid barriers to kind of try to fill in and make the body smooth. And that's not necessary when they have a New Hope appliance. Another situation here, the person's standing. When they sit, they develop multiple crease lines and folds. Typically, they get this extra hydrocolloid type barrier, and they try to seal and flatten out the abdominal area so that they get a good seal. This is showing that the New Hope with the pre-attached hydrocolloid to protect the skin and help to fill in the irregular areas can be pre-bent, and here you see where it's on, and you can actually see where it's forming down into the crease lines with the person giving them a good seal. Another situation where there's a very moist loop stoma, a deep crease below it, again showing how it can be bent to follow and give a good seal. Here's another situation. The person has very irritated, macerated skin. When they sit, they develop this big overhanging roll fold and a funneling down type depression. Again, the pouch can be bent to follow the contours, and the hydrocolloid in this case would be one of the extended wear moisture absorbing one, would help to heal and protect the skin. So that being said, I'd like to talk about the different hydrocolloids that are out there. We have the general standard wear barrier, which is a general purpose hydrocolloid, which is a good security material helping to protect and minimize potential skin breakdown to the peristomal area. We also have the Barrier 54, which is our 43 series. This is a thick, moldable, extended wear barrier, holds up well to small bowel effluent and other types of output. It features excellent moisture absorption properties, helps to protect and heal the skin. It can be used when the skin is at risk and fragile, excoriated, macerated, or weepy. It readily conforms to deep skin folds, creases, and depressions. The next series that we have is the 46 series. This is an excellent all-purpose extended wear barrier. Again, that has a very strong tack and gives excellent adhesion for urinary drainage or very caustic, watery fecal output. This barrier is known to swell and turtleneck around the stoma, which can give added skin protection. This barrier performs better, though, on intact skin. So each barrier has its own function. And then the 48 series is a double thick 46 version. Okay. So that being said, in order to really clarify the differences, I'd like the staff, I had given some samples of the pouches, to actually feel and see the differences with the pouches. Let me talk a little bit about the foam pad with the waterproof barrier. This appliance was originally developed for urinary stomas and has a waterproof seal, and it works very good if you have a flat abdomen with a nice budded stoma with either urine or a formed output, and can give a good seal for a good week or more. However, as you saw from the slides, there are many situations where people don't have ideal stomas, they don't have a nice flat abdomen, they have effluent with enzymes in it that they need to have a hydrocolloid to protect their skin. So using some of the flexible pouches that are out there, if you go ahead and bend them, you're going to see that they really buckle and bend and will allow it to leak in short order. With the New Hope pouch, however, it can be pre-bent, and I want you to go ahead and try bending one of the New Hope pouches, and you can pre-bend it, and you can see that when they bend, it's going to go down and form in there, unlike the others, which just flex and buckle. If you're using a rigid convex system, you can see that they're so rigid, they're not going to form, it's going to allow things to leak. And there was one real flexible convex one, but again, by the way it was produced, when it's bent, it springs right back. It's not going to go down and follow the body and give support into those creases. So we would like to think about another option that we decided to solve our coding dilemma. Rather than issue 4 new HCPCS codes, we would like you to consider the continued use of the extended wear barrier code, which we were allowed to use for that foam pad with the adhesive. So we could continue to use that, but with the addition of the pertinent hydrocolloid code to the pouch box label, essentially the pre-attached hydrocolloid. So on the box it would actually show the hydrocolloid as like a kit. So it would have the code for the extended wear barrier code and the hydrocolloid code on it. So that would be our proposal for you to consider, because those codes are already available. Next, I would like to go on and address the hernia belt situation. And The current code, the A4396 ostomy belt with peristoma hernia support, addresses more the need for a pouch support, minimizing the formation of a hernia and the support of small hernias. Most of the other belting systems on the market are mainly for pouch support and concealment. They have limited widths and support options and do not meet the needs of those with large hernias. Statistics show that about 1 in 3 persons with an ostomy will develop a hernia. By virtue of the surgery, a peristoma hernia is a likely occurrence. However, hernias can and do occur with and without an ostomy to the ventral and other abdominal defects. Looking at this hernia, you can certainly see that a large hernia can have multiple problems occur. In the area of the ostomy, the appliance will no longer adhere properly due to the stoma enlarging beyond what the available pouching systems have on the market. And the extreme bulge and contour changes that occur make adherence of the pouch challenging. The weight of the hernia can lead to pain and back strain, as well as the very real risk of life-threatening bowel obstruction and strangulation. This requires very costly hospitalization, emergency surgery, with likely complications and possible death. Here is a situation with a prolapsed stoma, which is barely accommodated by this large 4-inch pouching system. And the hernia occurs on the opposite side of the abdomen. A 3 to 4-inch belt can do nothing for such situations. Here's an example of an ostomy, double ostomy support, which was made by an orthotist, and a similar one which was made by New Hope. This particular patient that sent me this photo of this belt that was made by the orthotist did not have back issues. However, I learned that this support was billed as a sacroiliac support, and it was paid for at a much higher rate of an orthotic. People need the supports, but situations like this could lead to fraudulent billing. So I'd like to show a couple of the belts here. So as you can see, looking at the belts that I have there, a 3 or 4-inch belt, can do very good for supporting a pouch and a small hernia and helping to give support to maybe help minimize one from occurring. However, the larger belts, which are much more material, a lot more work, will do much more to help accommodate those larger hernias. And when they get into the 9-inch length, they are contoured to better fit the body, and certainly can be customized, as you saw with that 2 opening. Please keep in mind that the main purpose of these supports is that of a therapeutic support for reduction of a hernia, thus helping to keep the intestines in the abdomen, promoting bowel health and function. Even for those that have hernias that don't reduce, these supports allow the person to lead a productive life. They can slow and minimize the enlargement. They offer comfort and relief from back strain. And an ostomy is not the primary focus of these supports, although for those with an ostomy, it can offer pouch support. Most importantly, these supports can reduce the need for costly hospitalization. Wouldn't it be better to have such supports covered and not have to cover the expense of a hospitalization? A code is needed that will not limit the availability of these larger supports and reduce the temptation for fraudulent billing. Thank you. That concludes my part.
At this time, we will hear from a 5-minute speaker, Deborah Johnson.
Good morning. My name is Deborah Johnson. I'm the Senior Vice President of New Hope Laboratories, and I'm here to refute or to disagree with the recommendations as leaving them the same. As Mickey pointed out, especially with the pouches, we were hoping, that, and we would run that by you, as far as the labeling, everything happened so quickly when we first did all these applications to asking for new codes. It didn't seem quite, we weren't sure how that would work, but the fact that the extended wear code was used, and it was told to us to use 11 years ago or so by SADMERC, and we've used it ever since, but it's become an issue when we apply the hydrocolloid. So to list it on the label, and I have an example to show you if you want to see it, might be all around the easiest way to go about satisfying everybody involved. So that's just how where we stay with that. As far as the belts go, she showed you the belt with the 2 opening. That one was billed as an orthotic, and it was paid, I think we were told, somewhere on a little over $200. Our belts have been on the market for over 20 years. They've been paid in full by private insurances for forever. I mean, it goes back a long time. People can buy them. You can get them on eBay. I mean, you can get them in just about every place you look, even on Amazon. But the fact that there's no billing codes is a big deal. So what was my point? I forgot my point. This is new for me, so you'll have to excuse me. As she said, when my uncle passed away, he was my uncle, by the way. It's a family business. It goes 55 years. We're going on 55 years this year, so it's all of us have been picking up the pieces and picking up, okay, this is the things that we do. As a manufacturer, we haven't really looked at this, but we have dealers who call in and say, we're not going to get your product, or we're not going to provide your product to the end user because we can't get paid on it. And to hear that and to talk to the people on the phone who are what do you tell them? That they can't have this, that they have to go around. There's some people that can't leave their homes without their belt. Because the weight, the look, they can't wear their clothes right. Nothing fits. It's horrible. So what do you say to that person? How do you help them? Where do you direct them to go? So the codes are needed badly for so many people. And the 2-hole belt that you saw as an orthotic, they've been around a long time. That's not uncommon, So to help get away from that that would be very, very helpful, I think. Besides, typically some of the worst hernias go back in for resurgery, and they have to move the stoma to the other side, and the person ends up in the back, right back in the same position they were to begin with. So I mean, the calls that we get, there's a lot of need. There's a lot of need for it, and we'd ask you to reconsider, please. That's it. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'd love any questions. Anybody have any questions?
Okay. My condolences for your loss.
Thank you.
I was the former manager of the SADMERC 11 years ago.
Oh.
So I did code all of these products at the time. My question would be that you had mentioned an additional code to bill with the pouch for the hydrocolloid, and I'm not aware of a separate code for the hydrocolloid. Could you tell me what code?
I gave that the sticker. Well, it's the A4390 and A4388, A4390 is the flat, and then the convex code used for the pouches currently, which is listed technically as a extended wear hydrocolloid pouch.
But this is one piece, is that correct? That you're providing is just one piece?
Yeah, we put it
with the
together.
closed cell foam,
Yes.
with the addition of the hydrocolloid, which would be inappropriate to build the two codes for the one product.
Well, the one product, as you look on the with a straight foam, adhesive foam pad, like on a urostomy, I mean, without a hydrocolloid, you could practically reuse it. That's, I think, one of the reasons it was given the extended wear as opposed to a separate code, because ours is the only product that has that foam pad. The foam pad is the key. We don't put a hydrocolloid on all of them.
Right. The reason that the product was originally given the extended wear is because it could be worn for a week or more at a time. That's the definition of an extended wear.
Correct.
But it wasn't because most of the extended wears on the market at the time that your product was coated did contain hydrocolloid and were made out of hydrocolloid.
That's their production. That's how they produce
That's
them.
correct.
Right.
The addition of the hydrocolloid doesn't add to the extended wear of the device, because the extended wear devices made out of hydrocolloid were present at the time that your product was also present with the closed cell foam. The reason that the product was given the extended wear is that the closed cell foam did not have the properties that would break down similar to that of hydrocolloid.
Right.
Correct?
Right.
So it's still extended wear, regardless of whether it's closed cell foam or regardless of whether you've now added hydrocolloid to it.
Well, but as you can see, it works well for situations where there isn't a caustic effluent, or if the skin is an ideal situation. But many people have irregular skin surfaces, and they have stomas with caustic effluent that needs to be protected with the use of a hydrocolloid. Originally, it was made for urinary stomas. So this allows it to be used for not only urinary stomas, but for fecal stomas that have effluent, and for irregular skin surfaces to help give it a good seal. Without the hydrocolloid, it doesn't do that, so it needs the addition of a hydrocolloid. And as I mentioned, a lot of these other pouches that do have the hydrocolloid already on it, people are still buying additional hydrocolloids to add to those pouches. So it's a hydrocolloid and a hydrocolloid again, so that they can get a seal to make the pouch wear. Am I making sense?
I think what you're saying, too, is when it comes down to it, it comes down to how it's provided and educationally. You know, if you have to get it separately as a straight foam pad, and we've touched on that, too, at the shop.
It's really a unique pouch. It's not like the others that are out there on the market. They're totally different because of the way they're formed and the foam pad, where the others just have a tape. They're unsupported, they buckle, and if they do have rigidity, they're too rigid and they don't give the seal. So there's many people out there that they're trying to make their bodies work with a pouch that really doesn't stay on them correctly, whereas with this particular pouch, the way it is made, they get the wear time that they wouldn't normally get with an off-the-shelf, multiple mass-produced pouch that they may have to change every other day, whereas using this system, they can get a pouch which will stay on 4 or 5 days or longer within a less than ideal abdominal situation. Not trying to be a sales pitch, but it truly is, that's how it works.
Yeah, but I'm thinking, I believe I see where your point is, too, and it might just come, well, there's many times we do a lot of custom work, too. I don't know if any of you, we do a lot of custom work, and some of the pouches that I wish we had brought some samples, are crazy the way they're set. I mean, they have to be and everything has to be formed at the time of production because there's a heat form, and it's a whole process. And the hydrocolloid has to be put on at that time, to get it to work right. Otherwise, it's the two pieces. It would be too hard to get them to work properly. So that's an issue for us as well, to get these things paid for if the person only has Medicare. So that's the problem that people are facing. I mean, we get the calls all the time, what do we do? What do we do? And we're not sure how to direct them.
Essentially, people are buying the extra hydrocolloids to add to their hydrocolloid barriers. This actually would eliminate that need for having to buy those extra hydrocolloids because it's already pre-attached and formed.
Thank you.
I have one question, and it's on the hernia belt.
Yes.
What is it about the existing code that would limit the use of that code to describe a belt of any width? I mean, you spoke about existing code 84396 as though it describes only 3 and 4 inch width belts, but there's nothing about that existing code that limits the width of the belt.
It doesn't address the width of the belt. It's more the reimbursement issue. The reimbursement for the belts, it will cover the cost of a 3 or 4 inch belt. But when it gets beyond the 4 inch cost, it will not cover it. There are many people who don't have anything but Medicare for their medical supplies, and then they can't afford these larger supports that they need to help give them a quality of life and minimize the need for surgery, which I recently had a nurse I was working with, and before we were able to get her a wider belt, she ended up in the hospital and had to have emergency surgery, and she was there for almost 4 months. And now we still are needing to revisit making her a belt. So, because once you have a hernia, even with repair, it's a 50% chance that the hernia will reoccur, and each additional time it's even a more higher statistical level that the hernia will occur, and then they need to have a mesh implanted, and they're not without complications either. So ideally it's better to try to help that person live with a hernia and avoid the necessary surgeries, which are certainly not the final say that once they have a repair, it's all gone. They do come back. Why don't you come up to the mic? I appreciate these questions because it gives me a little bit more time to try to explain. Thank you.
Just with regard to the reimbursement, her saying the reimbursement, there's a lot of the large dealers who refuse to do anything with the belts at all. So there's people that have called in that have Medicare, and they're supposed to get it from, they've been set up with this one dealer, but they were told they need to get a belt, and the dealer says, no way. We don't cover that, or we can't provide that for you.
And it's like, because it's not covered. So then I find people are going to orthotists, and they get it billed fraudulently as a sacroiliac support when it's really supposed to be a hernia support.
Yeah,
and that's the purpose of them. Just because they have an ostomy, the real purpose is to support this hernia and reduce the hernia so that it doesn't get larger and give them good bowel function.
I mean, because we'll sell it, we'll make the belt for an orthotist. We'll make the belts, even depends on who's ordering it, obviously. But how they're billing it is a major, and I would think. And
what they charge is
deal.
Twice.
Over 200.
What New Hope charges.
They were paid.
Not that I'm trying to.
From Medicare.
But it's a lot more expensive for the government to pay for an orthotic than it is for this hernia support.
Okay, next is agenda item number 4. It is attachment number 14.72, request to establish 3 new level 2 HCPCS codes to identify ostomy skin barrier system, trade name Ostomy Vac. Primary speaker is Ed Burke.
Good morning. My name is Ed Burke. I'm founder and managing partner of Osto Innovations, LLC. My financial affiliation with the company is major shareholder with controlling interests. The purpose of the presentation is to refute a preliminary finding or decision arrived at by HCPCS Workgroup We're requesting 3 new HCPCS codes for our patented skin barrier system. This product has been developed to address several shortcomings associated with ostomy products on the market today. One was touched on by the previous speaker, being the high rigidity of these face plates that don't really conform to abdominal contour. The most significant challenge our users face on a daily basis is maintaining healthy peristomal skin. I think folks involved probably know what peristomal skin is and ostomy, so we won't bother going through that. Is that the case? We don't have to explain that, right? No. So the skin barrier faceplate is a medical device, serves two primary purposes, of course, one being the isolation of the stoma from the peristomal skin, and the second being a mechanical point or attachment point for the pouch. And of course, it's not uncommon for irritants to leak or seep into the peristomal skin area. And it's important that early detection occurs so that skin irritations do not progress to a more serious condition. Ostomates typically detect leakage by feeling an itching sensation. At this point, there may be already considerable skin damage done. The typical flanges or barriers out there now are not really transparent, and you can't really observe the condition of that peristomal skin unless you take it off. Our product offers 2 methods of detecting the presence of irritants in the peristomal skin area before itching even occurs. And I'll get into the detail of that shortly. I apologize for that. This is essentially the Ostomy Vac barrier system. It's comprised of an OVAC vacuum pump module. It's got a micro vacuum pump, and it has a controlling system inside, accurately controls vacuum and monitors vacuum. And this is the appliance, the skin barrier, that goes onto the peristomal skin. As you can see, it's highly compliant. It readily conforms to abdominal shape. It's made of a very, very soft silicone. The interface is either a standard oval or circular shape, or we can manufacture to a specific stoma shape. If there's a fistula involved, we can accommodate that. There's also a manufactured specialty adhesive that goes onto here, and then over that is a soft white cotton vacuum membrane. The use of vacuum enhances the attachment strength of the device to the abdomen, thereby reducing the surface area of adhesive that's actually in contact with skin. As you'll see in another slide, we use adhesive on our barriers that only cover a small annular area on the outside of the barrier and a small annular area on the inside, and the middle is a white cotton membrane. We also have a liquid separator that can be easily connected between these. It's a tiny module for high perspiration or high liquid carryover cases. As you can see, the product is quite different from the existing product, whereby we use vacuum to enhance the adhesion performance while minimizing the amount of adhesive that's in continuous contact with skin. We're asking for 3 codes. The first code covers a complete ostomy skin barrier kit that provides 12 months of usage, and that excludes the 30-day disposable products that are covered under the third code we're requesting. The second code is essentially the same as the first, which is a complete kit, minus the components that are warranted for 24 months. And of course, we're omitting these for cost savings purposes. And the third code covers the disposable supplies, which are the adhesive discs and cotton membranes that last 30 days. The high-level differences presented on this slide are elaborated in detail on the next, but I call your attention to that center picture, whereby you see that this is the cotton membrane over which vacuum is applied to assist in securing that to the abdomen, and also provides another important function too in leak detection. And this is the inner circle here that has very little area, and this is the inner circle here, and both outer annular ring, and they both are where the adhesive is applied. So if we were not to use vacuum and to get adequate adhesion to the abdomen, that whole entire area would have to be covered with adhesive, being in continuous contact with skin. In summary, we have significant differences that we feel warrants additional HCPCS codes. Our skin barrier is highly flexible, providing comfort and conformity to abdominal contour. Second, we utilize vacuum technology to enhance the strength of the bond between the skin barrier and the body. Thirdly, we utilize a white cotton membrane that clearly indicates the presence of irritants in the peristomal area prior to the onset of irritation, dermatitis, or itching. We also provide significant reductions of adhesive area facilitated by the use of this patented vacuum technology. We utilize a proprietary 3-layer adhesive system that leaves absolutely no residue on the peristomal skin. That's accomplished by using a matrix that adhesive is attached to on both sides, and the bond to that matrix is highly tenacious, so it's retained on that matrix and does not deposit onto the skin. Lastly, we continue to monitor for leakage between the stoma and the peristomal area. In the event leakage is detected, the OVAC provides warning with a mechanical vibrator. There's no noise. It's a robust vibrator similar to that of a cell phone. These are commonly coded skin barrier products that are similar to the ostomy vac in function, but differ from the standpoint of differences I previously stated. The purpose of this slide is to illustrate the savings to end users on an annual MSRP basis. It should be noted that savings from 36 to 63% can be realized by end users, again on an MSRP basis. Based on this, we feel we're in a position to provide substantial savings to Medicare as compared to products currently on the market. Albeit an old photo, this is an illustration of how adversely affected skin can be by merely adhesive. As you can see, there's been a seal ring used, so you know that the damage to that skin was not a result of stomal discharge and truly adversely affected by adhesive. In conclusion, we refute the HCPCS preliminary decision that a national program operating need is not identified by Medicare. Medicare and the private insurance sector, Medicare, the private, to establish a code to identify this device. Inflammatory or infectious conditions affecting the skin around the intestinal stoma are documented as common problems that ostomates face on a daily basis. And I think the CWOCN probably would agree with that. The ostomy skin barrier provides warning that can avert these conditions from occurring, unlike products covered by existing codes. Mechanical trauma of peristomal skin has also been documented as a common problem that ostomates face. Our skin barrier provides, on an average, 60% less surface area of adhesive in contact with the skin, thus reducing the adverse effect of mechanical trauma during the removal, the routine removal of those devices. Our skin barrier eliminates the need to use adhesive cleaning agents on the peristomal skin through the use of proprietary adhesive system. You certainly would use an antimicrobial and clean that peristomal skin before use, but you're not scouring or scrubbing off residual adhesives with our system. We believe a national program operating needed is in fact needed, predicated on problems that can be averted through the use of our product. Thank you very much for your time and attention.
We will now hear from our 5-minute speaker, Ms. Deb Wade. If you can. Oh.
Hello, my name is Deb Wade. I am an engineering consultant for Osteo Innovations, and I wanted to provide a demonstration of the new Ostomy Vac skin barrier system. As Ed mentioned, the skin barrier flange is a highly flexible silicone appliance that utilizes a cotton membrane for vacuum dispersion and an engineered 3-layer adhesive disc. Separately, they look like this. This is the membrane, and this is the adhesive disc. I'm going to try to, as Estelle mentioned, normally an ostomate doesn't have maybe an abdomen like mine, but so what you do is you peel back the adhesive, you gently press it on your abdomen, ensuring you have a good seal in the inner and outer ring. The OVAC vacuum module is connected. And you insert the battery. You will notice the LED lamp. Hold on one second. This is what you just heard was the mechanical vibrator indicating the target vacuum was not achieved. So I'm going to gently press down. Attach the pouch. And when I insert the battery, the LED lamp should illuminate for 1.5 seconds, telling the end user that the battery is completely full. And now when you want to remove it, typically with a traditional skin barrier, you wouldn't want to remove it after putting it on. You'd have that whole face covered with adhesive. But with this design, only 60% of the area has been reduced by adhesive contact with the skin, limiting it to only the outer and the inner ring. Highly flexible. This helps promote healthy skin, peristomal skin. Thank you.
Any questions or comments?
Can I ask you if that buzzing noise is a constant then when you've got that on?
No, the buzzing noise indicates the target vacuum has not been achieved, and I can see now I had the membrane overlapping the outer when I put it together. So you would simply, you would actually pull off the adhesive. And like I said, it's newly engineered, and it leaves very little residue behind. And the, so in the 30-day supply kit, it includes 20 cotton membranes and 20 adhesive discs. And what you would do is you'd put it back, you would reassemble the subassembly, and then you'd put it back on.
Can you come to the microphone, please?
I wanted to know if the pouches were disposable or reusable, and if the barrier is necessarily have to be pre-cut directly to the stomal size.
The pouches we use right now are standard Coloplast configuration. Ostomates purchase or acquire those pouches to their whatever their preference is. With regards to the membrane, they're standard sizes for each range of stoma size, yet the ID or inside circle is specific to the stoma size.
I'm sorry. Do you mind if I go ahead? When you were talking about the three proposed codes, I thought I heard you say that the first one, the complete kit, did not include the 30-day supply. Wouldn't it, at least on initial issue, include the first 30 days?
On initial issue for the first purchase, the 30-day supply is part of the kit.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify.
Sure.
Thanks.
Sure.
The adhesive that you use, is it a silicone-based adhesive because of the silicone, or?
Actually, no, it's an engineered acrylic.
Acrylic.
You're welcome. Thank you.
At this time, we will take a break and reconvene at 10:30. Good afternoon. If everyone could please take their seats, we're ready to convene. Agenda item number 5, attachment number 14.68, request to make a coding distinction between hydrophilic coated and non-coated intermittent catheters by revising existing codes A4351, A4352, and A4353 to remove references to coating, and establishing 3 new Level 2 HCPCS codes to specifically identify coated intermittent catheters. Trade name SpeedyCath. Primary speaker is Daniel Graves.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for this opportunity to address this crowd about the coding decision. We do respectfully disagree with the coding decision to have them remain the same. We would like to have these codes separated for all of the evidence that I'm going to present today. We have several clinical trials that we're going to present information from that show a distinct advantage and a protective effect of using a hydrophilic catheter for intermittent catheterization in spinal cord injury. And we would like you to consider this in revising the codes. The weight of the evidence that we're going to present strongly suggests that these catheters do have a different effect in the intermittent catheterization for spinal cord injury. And it's been 42 years since intermittent catheterization became standard of practice. And pretty much we're using the same thing that was introduced 42 years ago. And it is just a PVC catheter with lubrication put on it. And we would like to have you consider putting the hydrophilic catheters codes so that we can eliminate some of the confusion and our patients would be able to have access to the hydrophilic catheters. We are going to summarize the clinical trials, randomized clinical trials that have tested for different effect of the hydrophilic and the non-hydrophilic or uncoated catheters. There have been 5 trials, and the one trial that I was principal investigator on, and that's why I'm here speaking with you today. I was one of the center principal investigators for one of the trials, the largest clinical trial that we're going to present today. The 5 key findings from these trials are summarized on this slide. Basically, the use of hydrophilic catheters significantly delays the onset of the first treatable UTI in the rehabilitation setting, and that was a significant finding. It also significantly reduces the odds of getting urinary tract infections. It also significantly reduces the incidence of hospital-acquired urinary tract infections. They also reduce significantly the daily risk of urinary tract infections. And they also have the added benefit of reducing the occurrence of hematuria from damage to the urethra. I'm going to go over these 5 points again as we go through the studies. In 2011, Dr. Diana Cardenas was the principal investigator on a multi-site trial, a randomized clinical trial using the SpeedyCath catheters against Convene uncoated catheters. There were 3 significant findings of this in this trial, and this is the largest trial to date, largest randomized clinical trial testing for a difference in the effects. The first finding is that hydrophilic coated catheters significantly delay the onset of the first urinary tract infection. Normally, people that do intermittent cath have some kind of urinary tract infection. In the institutional period, usually when they're in acute care or when they're in rehabilitation setting, they have a very high incidence of urinary tract infection. Okay, this delayed the onset of the first one. This means that the participants have the added benefit of being more active in the rehabilitation, and they can perform more of the rehabilitative activities during their rehabilitation period. The second key finding is that we had a 21% lower incidence of hospital-acquired urinary tract infections. This not only reduces the cost of treating urinary tract infections in a very expensive rehabilitation setting, but it also means that there's going to be more active days in rehabilitation for the patients with ever decreasing lengths of stay in rehabilitation settings. So this has several benefits. Also, the third finding is that there is a 33% lower daily risk of developing the first urinary tract infection. Okay, 33% reduced daily risk is pretty important when patients learning that they're going to be doing this every day for the rest of their life, 3 or 4 times a day. This graph, I believe, shows the main finding of the Cardenas trial. It shows that from the beginning of the trial, when a person goes on the hydrophilic catheters, there is a protective effect. You can see these two curves. The lower curve is the uncoated catheter group. The upper curve, the blue line, is the hydrophilic catheter group. Now, this is a survival curve, so this is freedom from urinary tract infection. And you can see that these lines are distinct. Not only are they distinct at the beginning, which is very critical. This first 30 days or so is usually the rehabilitation setting. They are distinct in that there is a protective effect from the use of the hydrophilic catheters. There is less chance of them getting a urinary tract infection. And not only is it in the first initial interinstitutional period, but it is also in the community phase. So the course of rehabilitation is distinctly different for people that use the hydrophilic catheters versus the non-coated catheters. Okay. The next study that I'm going to present is actually a meta-analysis of all of the trials. There have been several trials in using or comparing the hydrophilic catheters and the uncoated catheters. Several of them were small trials. They were underpowered. They didn't find any real strong results. But when we put them all together in a meta-analysis, they're combining the strength of the studies. Then we can combine all those effects and get more clear idea of the power or the weight of the evidence. One of the things about a meta-analysis is that you have to do them correctly in order for the evidence to be convincing. In this trial, in this meta-analysis by Lee, that was published in the Archives of Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation in 2013, they did everything right in this trial. Not only did they include 5 clinical trials, the Cardenas trial that I was just telling you about, the one that I was involved in, was given the highest rating for the strength of the study, along with a DeRitter trial that was a European trial, multi-centered trial, just like the North American trial. There were 3 other smaller studies put into this meta-analysis as well. But Lee and his colleagues followed all of the Cochrane guidelines for the data extraction and analysis and review. They graded all of the studies on the JADAD scale and had 2 level 5 studies, which is the highest grade you can get. The 5 randomized trials, 4 were in North America and 1 was in Europe, and a total of 508 participants in the meta-analysis. When you see meta-analyses, sometimes they present the data in a forest plot, and that's what this is. And for each study, there is an effect, an odds ratio over here. And you can see, if you can see that far, I hope, that the second line, the 2011 Cardenas trial, which is the largest trial that has been done, we have an odds ratio that favors the hydrophilic catheters. The next line down is the other large clinical trial, the one in Europe, and it also has a protective effect from using hydrophilic catheters. The other three trials, the first line and the other trials down here, you can see that the 95% confidence limit doesn't exclude one, which means that there is equivocal evidence. Here we have the combination of these trials, and we get a very, very strong effect. The reason that we've had some trials that didn't show an effect and others that did was basically the size and the number of participants. So when we combine them all together, we have a very, very strong and highly significant result. So the weight of the evidence seems to suggest that there is a protective effect from hydrophilic catheters for decreasing the odds of urinary tract infections. The second advantage that we were able to combine, or they were able to combine in the meta-analysis, was for the detection of hematuria. And this is caused by damage to the urethra from repeated catheterization. We can see that actually in none of these trials did we actually see a protective effect from the detection of hematuria. However, that again is the fact that we did not have enough participants. So when we combine them all together, we group the power of all these studies together, there is a protective effect. It favors the use of hydrophilics in reduction of hematuria. Okay, so we've presented evidence now from 5 randomized clinical trials, which is the gold standard for testing the effects of different instruments. We have the weight of evidence, I believe, is suggesting that the course of rehabilitation would be different for patients, the effects and the use of these catheters. There is a significant delay in the onset of the first urinary tract infection, and since this is probably going to be the first change in intermittent catheterization in 42 years, I think that that's a step in the right direction. There's also a significant reduction in the odds of getting a UTI at all. So that's very significant news for people that have to do this 3 or 4 times a day for the rest of their life. There has been a reduction in the incidence of hospital-acquired UTIs, which is the part of rehabilitation where the incidence of UTIs is the highest. Usually in the hospital setting, there's a lot of bugs floating around, and it's much more likely that you're going to get a UTI. There is a significant delay or significant reduction in the daily risk of developing the first UTI. And there's also a significant reduction in the odds of acquiring hematuria through damage through urethra through repeated catheterization. Therefore, based on the latest evidence, the benefits and findings of the reduction in urinary tract infection and hematuria, as well as the distinct differentiation in material benefit and medical indication for use, the separation of conventional catheters from hydrophilic-coated catheters is, I think, more than warranted. Thank you. That was the bell.
Okay, at this time we will hear from Sam Kawam, our 5-minute speaker.
Hello, thank you for giving me this opportunity to comment on issue of hydrophilic catheter versus uncoated catheter. My name is Sam Kawam. I'm a spinal cord injury advocate. I'm a consultant for Coloplast. The reason I want to give my comment on this for multiple reasons. I know many members of the committee in the past have seen several applications in the past showing that hydrophilic catheters and asking for separation of the code. And for many reasons, they decided there was not enough medical evidence. I think today, after the presentation by Dr. Daniel Carver, he shows clearly that there is a benefit of including hydrophilic catheters as separate code from the conventional coded catheters for many reasons. The hydrophilic catheter works a little bit different and totally as far as the outcome of it. It has layers, smooth layers, that if somebody who is with spinal cord injury or spinal bifida, or even some able patient who are with cancer who need to catheterize themselves, they will see a significant difference as far as the smoothness, the way how it goes in, less trauma to the urethra. Not only that, issues with the sphincter as well. It has another great benefit for patients who are in between, who has strictures in their urethra. Some of these patients, sometimes they go directly from having a coude tip, but a lot of these patients, if they are using the hydrophilic catheters, they don't have to go to the coude tip. They can do fine and well with it because of the smoothness, and it slides very easily, and it passes the sphincters and goes straight to the bladders. And they don't have to go more expensive procedures such as the coude tip, and they can do just fine with that. For the extreme patient who totally have total strictures, then that's another story. Then they want the coude tip. I believe many states have recognized the benefit of hydrophilic catheters. And there's about 5-6 states, they came up with their own specific code. Unfortunately, some of those states who are reluctant to have assigned code for the hydrophilic for its benefit because of the HIPAA regulation, they were reluctant to do that. But one of the larger scale states, they decided to do that specifically because they saw the benefit of it. I hope the committee see the same benefit that other states. This hydrophilic catheter is being totally supported by physical medicine and rehab physician. It's being supported by the urologist. I believe the committee received numerous letters regarding this issue from urologists, from physical medicine and rehab, and from the stakeholder. The whole medical community are behind this issue, are behind the separation of the hydrophilic catheter from the uncoated catheters. Plus, on the top of all this, patient access is being extremely diminished because of that. What happened is when you have a bunch of code all bunched together, and it would be up to the providers to decide, choose and pick which catheter to give to their patient. Because of that, I know they're not supposed to do that. Suppose and doing is two different things, but they are doing that, and it's very common. I know that for myself and from other folks that I come across. The doctors write for them for hydrophilic catheters. In turn, what do they get? They get uncoated catheter. Guess what? Because it costs less as far as the uncoated catheters, and they put profit before the patient care. This is it helped a great deal by having a separate code. The reason why it would help is when the physician writes a prescription about hydrophilic catheter, if they can attach a code to it, then it would be really almost impossible. It would be totally fraudulent for the providers to try to separate it or to give them something different than what the doctor specifically requests to have it on their prescription. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I'll take any question you have.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
This hydrophilic coated material, what is the material? Is it antibacterial or bacteriostatic? How does this infection is controlled?
That's an excellent question. I don't know. It is not antibiotic material. The research on antibiotic impregnated catheters hasn't been very productive. But this is just a saline solution that the catheter comes coated with this substance when it's in the bag, and it comes out and it's pre-lubricated.
So they have not done any specific research on the material, how it is reducing the UTIs?
Well, we suspect that it has to do with the reduction in the harm to the urethra from the repeated catheterizations.
Okay. There is no specific information that hydrophilic coated material is reducing the UTI?
Not
right?
Except for the 5 trials that have
Yeah,
that
they
have
are
shown.
observational
Yeah.
studies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Is that it? Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, I would like to just reiterate to the speakers that when you hear the ringing, that means you have 2 minutes left. You don't have to stop in the middle of your thought. You have 2 minutes to begin wrapping up. When I stand, that means your 15 minutes is completely gone. Okay. Next item is agenda item number 6. Request to establish 2 new level 2 HCPCS codes to identify a gastrointestinal tube and accessories. Trade name, Parastene Transanal Irrigation System. Primary speaker, Dr. Stephen Kirschblum.
Good morning. Thank you very much for the opportunity to comment on the codes that were designated for the Parastene system. So I split my time between research, writing, had a chance to write the textbooks for the field of spinal cord medicine and advocacy for the field. And then also I've had the opportunity to, really in pleasure, to treat patients with disabilities, mostly those with spinal cord injury for the last 25 years. So I'm here on behalf of Coloplast, but probably more so for my patients who suffer from severe neurogenic bowel dysfunction, to discuss the code that was assigned to the Parastene system, to demonstrate why this code doesn't really adequately describe the device, nor the patient population that the device is really meant for, and to humbly request that you reconsider the designation of the code and the consideration of the codes that were applied for, the 2 codes. So to go back in terms of some background, Coloplast in early 2013 went to some of the CMS contractors and asked if there were codes that were available for the Parastene system, which is the transanal irrigation system, which you're probably familiar with, and if not, I'll show it to you in just a minute. And at that time, we're told that there really were no codes that aptly explained and described the device. And then in further discussions with state Medicaid representatives and private insurance companies, they too were unable to find any billable codes that would allow for patients to have access to this type of device. And they strongly recommended and encouraged Coloplast to apply for the 2 separate codes. So recently, this year, Coloplast did apply, and the code of A4458 was assigned. And in looking into this code, it seems to be only one company that has used this code, and this is for the enema with tubing reusable. Basically, it's an over-the-counter enema system, non-physician prescribed, and a system for people with intact rectal sphincters, people who can control their bowel movements, basically people who are able-bodied, who become constipated, who need an enema. The Parastene system really is very different. There are really 2 parts to it. It's the transanal irrigation system and the special balloon catheter, which I'll show you in a minute. But this device is specifically aimed for people with neurogenic bowel dysfunction. Specifically, this means people who cannot control their bowels. They don't have sensation of when they're going to have a bowel movement, and even if they could, they cannot control it. People with neurogenic bowel include those with spinal cord injury, spina bifida, multiple sclerosis, other neurologic disorders such as Parkinson's disease, or other disorders where a person loses control of their bowel. If a person loses control, then they end up with socially embarrassing and really medically complicating bowel accidents. This is bowel incontinence. The Peristeen system is very different from the basic enema bag, which is the 84458. This is physician prescribed. You need a special training. And most important, the indications for the use of this system is for people who have failed other devices such as the basic enema. You can see here on the left. So this is an intact individual. So someone who is able-bodied, as stool comes down into the rectal area, the person has the ability to sense when they need to have a bowel movement and has voluntary control of their sphincter. These are the voluntary muscles that people can contract. So if you happen to have the urge to have a bowel movement, and I'm sorry for talking about this now, but you have the urge, let's say it's the wrong time and place, you're in the car or you're sitting in the middle of the meeting and the break is now over, the person who's able-bodied has the chance to contract their muscles, pushes the stool back up, and no incontinence. On the right, however, is a person with neurogenic bowel. The stool may come down into the rectal area, but the person doesn't sense it. This shows a person with neurogenic bowel where their sphincter is open. So anytime the person may have some activity or coughing or transfers, stool will then come out. Some people have spastic sphincters. Even in those cases, as stool comes into the rectal area, there's no control of when the sphincter will open and the stool will come out. I think it is really key to understand in terms of the different patient populations that an intact individual who can use an enema bag has control of their bowels and can use the regular enema. A person with neurogenic bowel cannot and can have accidents. Now this is perhaps the most important slide that I can try to relay to you. And this is the importance of understanding how neurogenic bowel dysfunction correlates with quality of life. The poorer the ability to control the bowels, the poorer the quality of life. Neurogenic bowel is the second most common complication after spinal cord injury, not only acutely but chronically and throughout the lifetime. It is the fourth most common reason for hospitalization, and I've looked at this data and published on this a number of times. And it's the seventh most common cause of death in spinal cord injury. But even for those living with it, take a look at this. The fear of bowel accidents is a major reason why people don't get involved back in their life, because they're afraid. And it impacts their ability to participate in activities like social activities, recreational activities, and going to work. More than 1/3 of surveyed subjects with spinal cord rate bowel and bladder dysfunction as having the most significant effect on their lives after spinal cord injury. Think of this. This is their top priority after having a spinal cord injury. Most people think regaining the ability to walk is what they want to do after their injury. But that's only before they're injured. When they suffer the embarrassment of having bowel incontinence, that becomes their top priority. Now, many people also link bowel and bladder together. They say, okay, bowel and bladder dysfunction, it's one. It is not one. Bladder incontinence you can hide. You have all different types of management devices. You have internal catheters, external catheters. Right? You can wear a diaper. It can protect your skin, keep you dry, and no one will be the wiser if you're having an accident. But not so with bowel. If you have an accident, people around you can smell, and that's it. If not treated correctly, bowel incontinence not only causes medical complications like bed sores and pressure ulcers, but it has the psychosocial ramifications from the accidents, which includes depression, it includes loss of productivity, feelings of isolation, and hopelessness. So what do? In medicine, what we do is we treat neurogenic bowel by establishing what's called the bowel program. The bowel program is where we try to get the patient regulated, where they will have a consistent time and place that they'll have the bowel movement within a reasonable time frame. Reasonable time frame, by the way, is considered 1 hour. That's considered reasonable. Okay, so that's what we do. We have a step-ladder approach. On the bottom rung, we use basic natural medications and suppositories. If that doesn't work, the patient's still having accidents or it's taking too long, we move up the rung. The next rung is stronger medications, stronger suppositories. If that doesn't work, we go to the next rung. That is your basic over-the-counter enemas. You give that a try. If that doesn't work, though, in the past there were two options. One, you lived with it. And what most people did when they lived with neurogenic bowel, having bowel accidents, is they didn't participate in their activities. They stayed home. They accommodated their lifestyle to their bowel. or they can then go to surgery. For instance, a colostomy, where they end up with a colostomy bag. Those are the options. So it reminds me of a patient I remember who comes to mind. So he had a spinal cord injury. He seemed to adjust fairly well. Went back home, he was a young gentleman. He became a dad to his kids, husband to his wife, was wheelchair dependent, but wanted to go back to work. He was a jeweler, he had a jewelry store. Bowel was really hard to manage. Just couldn't control the accident. Anyway, he went back to work, came back to see me a month later, severely depressed. I asked him, what's the matter? He said he's never going back to work. Why? He had a bowel accident during a staff meeting, and he said he cannot bear going back with that embarrassment. Now, he ended up, we tried to get him the Peristeen system. It wasn't approved by the insurance company. This was right where it came out. He didn't want to stay at home anymore. His wife pushed him, and he ended up getting colostomy. Now he's happy that his bowels are controlled, but is now dealing with the body image of having the colostomy, especially when he knows that there was a system that could have worked for him. Now, some people's bowel program, it takes them 1 hour. We say that's okay. Some people it takes 2 hours, 3 hours, and some patients even more. Just imagine the impact it would have on anyone's life if every time you had a bowel movement, it took 3 hours out of your day. Imagine the loss of productivity and quality of life that it would have every day or every other day, which these patients have. So what we do to keep patients active in the community is to really develop this program. And now what this system, the Peristeen system, it gives us this rung. If the enemas don't work, instead of either just living at home or living close to home and not getting involved or going for surgery, this allows somebody to have another rung in that ladder. So it's sort of like a mid-level type of treatment when other treatments are not successful. Now, I'm not going to go into great detail. I don't know how much time I have, and I am sure that you probably are familiar with the device. I'm just going to mention a couple of things. This device is used for people who cannot easily sit on a toilet. These patients do their bowel program on a commode, and they want to do their bowels independently as much as possible. So even if they have poor body control, they still want to do it independently. And this system, you can see with the handle, it's built specifically for people that they can control their entire bowel program on their own. One can't do that with a basic enema bag, and I'll show you in a minute why. I'll get right to that slide. All right, this is what a regular enema would look like. But just imagine you're sitting on a commode and a patient with poor balance is trying to put this in, trying to irrigate the water up. If you have no control of your sphincter, as you put water up, what's going to happen to it? Gravity is just going to push it right out. Now, in the case that it may work, yes, these patients with spinal cord injury and other neurologic disorders, give it a try. But if it doesn't work, just continuing enema isn't going to be helpful. It's not going to be effective. What's so unique about the catheter, and this is the single-use catheter, is that you have this balloon that the patient can inflate. This takes the place of the sphincter that the person can't use. So they inflate the balloon, allow then the water to irrigate into the colon, let it stay there for a little while so it does the job of what an enema is supposed to do. We'll then deflate the balloon, remove it, and then the stool will come out. This is a slide. I'm not sure why I added it because it's a little more scientific than need be. But basically it just shows that the Peristeen system works. It empties the bowel. You can see that it's really dark here, which means that the bowel is closed out. It works. It has been used in Europe since 2004. There are numerous articles, and I didn't show the articles because there are numerous of those from colleagues, and I've had a chance to spend time in Europe learning from the physicians who treat these disorders there. And the articles have shown that it's done so much. It's allowed the patients to regain independence, to regain control of their bowel management, to allow them to get out and be active in life, and most importantly, gives them the confidence to be able to do the things that everyone wants to do despite having the spinal cord injury. So I'll just summarize in two things. The Peristeen system is very different from the enema bag. It is FDA approved specifically for patients with neurogenic bowel dysfunction. It is not for patients with able-bodied who can control their sphincter. It requires a physician prescription. So you have to meet the specific indications of failing other devices in order to even get it. So it is a mid-level treatment when other things have failed. It has that specially designed rectal catheter which takes over control for the sphincter that is not working. It is clearly shown evidence across the world that it's helpful, and I am the PI on a study in America to look at how it decreases the time for bowel programs, because patients are just taking 2-3 hours a day to show how effective it is in a United States study. And certainly very much supported by physicians who are starting to use it, and I believe that you have those letters. In summary, the 2 points I wanted to make. It is very different from the enema bag that's available over the counter, and the patient population is significantly different. So I urge you please to reconsider the idea of what codes that is available, these 2 codes, to allow the patients who suffer from neurogenic bowel, who have failed the other procedures, to now have some avenue so that they can see the light. Thank you very much.
At this time, we will hear from our 5-minute speaker, Laura Slack. Okay, is that Janet? And Janet Slack.
Hi, we'd like to thank you for giving us the opportunity to share our story here quickly. Dr. Kirschblum did a great job describing the Peristine system. Laura here is a user of the system. I'm her mom, and Laura was born 28 years ago with spina bifida. As a paraplegic, she has dealt for her whole 28 years with the constipation and fecal incontinence issues that come along with having a neurogenic bowel. On top of that, she's dealt with all the medical aspects and the social stigma and self-esteem problems that come with having fecal incontinence. Over the years, we've tried just about everything to get this under control. We've used various suppositories, glycerin, Fleet's enemas. We've used the traditional gravity-fed enema, which you have the code for now. We've tried cone enemas. We've tried the McBowel system. We've even gone as far as using a urinary Foley catheter to administer an enema, all in an effort to get that sphincter control that the doctor talked about. Nothing has worked for us until we found the Peristine system. Again, the sphincter issue is a huge issue. Like the doctor said, when you use a traditional enema, you put the water in as fast as you're putting it in, it's coming out, so it doesn't do any good at all. We really need the balloon that the Peristine system offers to replace that sphincter. It makes a nice seal, it holds the water in, and another huge advantage of the Peristine system is the I guess it's a suction bag or a vacuum bag. The way it works is when you squeeze that balloon, squeeze the thing to put the air in the balloon, it actually forms kind of a suction and sort of gently forces the water into the colon and up to where it needs to go so that you can get a good cleanse out of it. Laura's going to talk to you a little bit about the actual using the system and what she likes about it.
It's easy to use, and I can do it almost all on my own. And it's easy to take care of, and it works. And I have less accidents, and it because it goes the balloon or the catheter goes in me a little bit higher, so it forces the water up higher. And I can notice and feel a difference. And it gives me a much better clean out. And it's nothing like a standard gravity enema. And the bag has like a suction, and it gently forces the water in, while the balloon holds the catheter in. Yeah, I think so.
It's made Laura a different person. It really has changed her life. Since she began using it, she has moved out of our house and lives in her own apartment now, manages her life independently. She's not afraid to go out into public now. She drives and goes out. She volunteers at the hospital doing clerical work. These are things that she can do without worrying about having an accident. It's made dramatic changes in her life. We feel like we've made such progress, and we thank Coloplast for giving us the opportunity to use this awesome product, and we just don't really want to go backwards. We want to go forward and continue to use it, and we hope that you'll consider assigning the codes that we need so this product can continue to be available to us. Thank you.
Before I call our next speaker, I just want to say I know you all are excited about the achievements that you receive and the benefits that you receive when you're using these products, but I would like to again state that you not disclose any personal health information. Okay, I'm going to call our next 5-minute speaker, Lily Roberts.
Thank you for having me here today. My name is Lily Roberts, and I'm an RN from Chicago. I work at a rehabilitation center there. I have been a nurse for over 30 years, working with patients with neurogenic bowel disorder and other neurogenic disorders for 16 years. First, what I'd like to do today is just let you know that I am a participant of the Continence Advisory Board for Coloplast. I have no financial interest in the company. One other thing is, we've talked so much about hydrophilics and about the system. I'd like to begin to show you how the system actually works. The system has a hydrophilic balloon, so you will get a chance to review that technology. The hydrophilic balloon properties allows the catheter to be inserted easily, and I noticed that you're feeling it, and there is no greasy residue. It is naturally lubricated. That's one less step for the patient. It's inserted smoothly, and then what the patient does is, because of the pressure in the bag, and that was talked about as well, it's an even, gentle pressure. I'm not going to put water through there, but I am going to blow up this balloon. I'm a little dry. The balloon is hydrophilic, and it does have to be moistened before you can use it. Okay. Now that's just a little bit. That balloon goes larger for a flaccid bowel, for the rectum. It's harmless and gentle for the patient. So when patients are using this, they really have no pain or discomfort when they actually insert and inflate that balloon. And I just want to have you note the pressure in the bag. As you pump the air into the balloon, the bag around it fills with air and allows pressure. You cannot get that effect with an enema. So there is a gentle pressure that fills that bowel, and it goes all the way up as high as the transverse colon, which is why patients have less accidents, and that's very important. Thank you. Oh, yeah. You can put it on the ground. So when I'm teaching patients like to have things at their accessible high up with them. That's why I didn't really think about putting it down. But they can have it down, so you don't need gravity for this. It's the pressure in the bag. And if you, I'll run a little water. Didn't want to do that, but. When the balloon is inflated, of course, that's a little bit how that works. But as you can see, the water will go without the bag being elevated above. And you will not get that effect with an enema, because usually the patient's sphincter is not going to hold that catheter from a regular enema in their rectum, and they're not going to have good results. Basically, for a regular enema to get the same results, or close to it, which it never does, you'd have to turn that patient upside down, and you do that in the hospital. We used to do that a long time ago. So the system is very effective. So I just want to talk to you today about my experience with Peristeen. Neurogenic bowel disorder is very devastating for patients. I work with spinal cord injury patients with very high injuries, as also MS, adult spina bifida, and other neurological disorders. When I first heard about Peristeen, I went to my physician colleagues and I discussed it with them, and they agreed that we should treat our patients with it. And I was really excited because with traditional bowel programs, what we usually do is patient is prescribed stool softeners, some up to 4 times a day. They may even have, of course, we tell them to hydrate well, and then they may have bowel stimulants. And then during their bowel program, which is developed to create regularity, they do a digital stimulation of the rectum or manual remove if necessary. Now, my patients were having to repeat that process 3 and 4 times, taking them up to 2.5, sometimes 3 hours just to get the evacuation. And then they would get minimal evacuation, still having problems with constipation, continuing to have problems with their bowel programs, accidents during the day, just really depressed and ineffective. When they told me that a code was being assigned for the product, I got really excited. But when they told me what the code was, I was shocked because it doesn't describe what the system does. The system is not an enema. And I have a lot of patients that are needing this product, and they're not able to get it. Just in brief, this product has worked for a lot of my patients, and we've had hundreds of them, but probably 50 in the past year. One patient in mind that I'd like to discuss just real quickly is a 29-year-old quadriplegic who was in unbearable pain and discomfort and didn't come to us until that happened.
I'm sorry, that's your time. Does anyone have any questions? Comments?
I just wanted to say thank you especially to Laura. Did she leave the room? Well, pass it along. I'll try to catch her in the hallway. You know, we get medical professionals in here all the time who are comfortable on a podium, but when individuals come in who have a story to tell, it must be very intimidating. And not only that, but to tell such a personal story. And I appreciate you, Janet, and appreciate Laura for being so brave to come and speak to us today. And we've heard what you said. It means a lot to us, and we'll take it into consideration. Thank you.
Okay, agenda item number 7, attachment number 14.73. Request to establish a new Level 2 HCPCS code to identify a STOMA noise suppression device. Trade name, STOMA Stifler. Primary speaker, Mark Bain.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Mark Bain, and I am one of the co-owners at Beam LLC in Michigan, and our product is called the STOMA Stifler It's been on the market now for over 2 years, between 2 and 3 years. We sell it globally. We have some distributors in some countries. As I said, I'm one of the co-owners. I'm also the inventor of the STOMA stifler. And I'm here today to discuss the HCPCS code, the decision, to rebut the decision that a national program operating need was not identified by Medicare. I'd like to provide some subjective data and some objective data to explain why Beam LLC believes there is a need. But before I get into that data, I'd like to talk a little bit about the personal side and the genesis of this device and why it came to be. And actually, even before that, let me get into some of the Medicare statutory requirements, because right now there are no products like this that are covered by Medicare on the market. So what exactly does this device do? This is the device. It's called the STOMA stifler. It's worn externally of the ostomy pouch. Actually, first of all, let me apologize. I don't have slides. I've got a Word document, so that's why there are no slides for you to view, but our CMS team here has the handout, so I apologize for doing it on a Word document. Okay, so as I said, National Program Operating Need was not identified. This is a quality of life improvement product. It's called the STOMA stifler. A lot of folks who call us, our hotline, they call it the STOMA stifler. It's actually the name stifler, as in stifling the stoma. I see some smiles there. This device, the genesis of this device, I am not an ostomate myself. My mother is. She's 77 years old. She lives in Florida. She's had a colostomy now for about 20 years. About 5 years ago, she called me up. I'm an engineer in Detroit, and she said, "Mark," she's used to me fixing things in her house, and said, "Hey, I've been volunteering at the ostomy support groups down here in Port Charlotte, Florida, and we've had a lot of input about a certain problem. Maybe you can provide some feedback." Again, this was 5 years ago. I said, "Sure, Mom." What was the issue? I didn't think I could really help her. Anyways, that was really the seed that was planted. That conversation with my mother turned into a more comprehensive discussion and into a clinical study with some of those people at the support group. These are ostomates. A lot of them were new ostomates that had just had the surgery, colostomies or ileostomies, or they were veteran ostomates like my mother who had ostomies for 20, 30, sometimes 40 years. So as I said, this is a quality of life improvement product. It is a detachable, soft polyurethane noise suppression product that essentially is worn external to the ostomy pouch. You can control how much it snugs against the stoma. It's worn externally of the pouch. It never comes in contact with the skin or the stoma. It can be worn on a belt, on an ostomy pouch belt, or it can be adhered with medical tape to the skin. And I'm going to demonstrate the former in terms of the ostomy belt. So that was the genesis of this product, was the conversation with my mother. Talking about the subjective data here. Now, as I said, that turned into a clinical study with people from the ostomy group down in Florida and with some other people on the East Coast. We figured that there was enough, my partner and I figured there was enough of a demand for this product to go ahead and try some prototypes. And the prototypes led to more clinical studies to the point where we thought, there's enough of a demand here that we can actually go and spend some capital and build a tool and actually get a product that we can really fine-tune in terms of some of the needs that these ostomates were telling us what they wanted in this type of a product that could suppress noise. Something that was one of the most primary things, but it had to be removable. As we all know, when you get the surgery and you have an ostomy and you're wearing a pouch externally, there's enough work, additional work from your previous life before you had the surgery to manage the pouch and some of the accessories. If this product was going to make sense to ostomates, it had to be removable. So as you can see from the demonstration or the sample I provided down there, this is a magnetic, soft polyurethane product that can basically be worn externally, and it's got an adjustable strap here when you wear it on an ostomy pouch belt, so you can basically adjust the snugness. Now, why is this product necessary in terms of why am I here talking to Medicare? Well, first of all, there is no Medicare code that covers noise suppression for ostomates. There is no code. The denial was essentially, the reason was a national program operating need was not identified. So as I said, I want to talk about that in terms of subjective and objective data. I've talked about the subjective data. Objectively, we've been in business now for over 2 years, as I said. We've had sales globally at the conferences. We've attended many conferences, some with my other colleagues here. I've seen them at some of the shows. We've had sales in other countries. This product is actually covered in Canada by secondary insurance 100% of the cost, and in Japan it's covered 60 to 100% of the cost. We get a lot of phone calls from ostomates here in the U.S. asking if there is secondary coverage or Medicare and coverage, and we always have to tell them, no, there is not. That's something that we're working on, and I've always had this meeting in my sites to come down and try to provide this information to the CMS team. So as I said, the feedback from our website, we've also got insurance coverage, secondary in Canada and Japan, other countries pending, and then of course there's our sales. We've been in business now for 2.5 years. Always the first question we get from customers who call us because they pay out of pocket is this covered by secondary or Medicare? And we always have to tell them, no, it is not. Now, some of my predecessors who were here at the meeting were talking, I think the one gentleman was talking about enemas and operating, able-bodied sphincters versus not able-bodied. I think that was a very good prelude to what this product does, because the gentleman spoke about quality of life and the impact and all the hidden costs associated with quality of life and the type of the reasons why a product like this is needed. If you can imagine, just a very simple social experiment, if you can imagine that we didn't, all of us in this room had no control of our external, well, our sphincters, just to make it simple. The sphincter, the anal sphincter, does a lot of things, but one of the things that it does in terms of when you have a colostomy or an ileostomy that able-bodied people with sphincters take for granted is the ability to control stool and to control flatus. I'm talking about fecal incontinence. Fecal incontinence, we've heard about it from some of the previous speakers. A lot of times it's really thought about in terms of stool control, but there is the associated gas or flatus control as well, and that comes at a big price. When you lose that control, there is a big price that you pay in terms of self-esteem, in terms of your social life. There were some examples mentioned by my predecessors. I've heard many examples. I've talked to people on the phone, doctors, WOCNs, veteran ostomates, and new ostomates, regardless of gender, culture, or country, in terms of not wanting to go back to work, not wanting to get back into the dating cycle, not wanting to go to church, anxiety and stress, and then all the related physical symptoms that come along with those problems. So this device here, the stoma stifler, as I said, it was designed to address the noise, the flatus control that you get when you have your sphincter surgically removed and resulting ostomy pouch. I'm still on page 1. Okay, so let me get into some of the specifics here in terms of the Medicare statutory requirements. Does this technology fall into at least one benefit category or categories under the Act? Yes. We posit that this device is essentially an artificial sphincter. The pouch arguably could be considered an artificial colon. There is no category in terms of artificial sphincters in Medicare for noise suppression. There are artificial sphincters, experimental and otherwise, out there being tried in the field, but nothing specifically that's been designed to address the noise issue in terms of fecal incontinence or flatus control. Statutory exclusion in Medicare. Does the new technology involve an item or service that is specifically excluded? The answer is no. Reasonable and necessary. Is the new technology reasonable and necessary for the diagnosis or treatment of an illness or injury, or to improve the functioning of a malformed body member? The answer is yes. As we all know, when you get ostomy surgery, part or all of your colon is removed, and the sphincter and the control of the sphincter, obviously, along with that. So an ostomate is essentially dealing with the same type of fecal incontinence challenges that an able-bodied person with a sphincter that is non-operational would be dealing with. But I'm here specifically to talk to you about noise, because obviously the pouch acts as the artificial colon to contain stool. We also posit that the stoma stifler falls under the prosthetics category. The Medicare guidance expands the definition, I'm on page 2, of prosthetic devices to include those that replace all or part of the function of a permanently inoperative or malfunctioning external body member or internal organ. Now, we searched the codes for the HCPCS codes in Medicare to see if this could fall under any category, and there is, as I said, no category at all in Medicare, the codes that cover noise suppression. Ostomy surgery, bottom of page 2. I cover the different types of ostomies: ileostomy, urostomy, and colostomy. This device actually really focuses on ileostomies and colostomies. Urostomies really aren't affected at all by this device. So it's really due to the partial or the complete removal of the colon is when this device really becomes necessary. Now, you may wonder, how many ostomates, deal with this challenge, and is this a problem? Well, we've been to a lot of shows in Canada and the US, my partner and I, and the data that we have, and I put some of it in front of you, in front of the CMS team, it's roughly, consistently actually, over 45% of the people that we talk to, and as high as 90% of the people that we talk to at the conferences that we've been to, and we've been to probably in the last 2 years, probably 9, easily over 9 conferences, with different levels of attendance, sometimes hundreds of people, sometimes only dozens. But this is a very, it's an issue within the ostomy community that is not really talked about much. It's almost taboo to a point. If I know this, again, talking to our clinical trial subjects, we really have to get them to open up. So I'm thinking that could be why maybe Medicare has ruled that a national program operating need was not identified, because this is not something that an ostomate would come forth automatically and say, hey, I've got this problem, doc, what can you do? It's something, it's an issue that's really about quality of life, where an ostomate will suffer in silence. Okay, I'm going to jump over page 3 in terms of sphincters and what they do. I think my predecessor talked about that. Consequences to emotional health and physical health on page 5. Again, quality of life is what this is about, and all the hidden costs associated with stress and depression. Transcends age, gender, country. This is something that all ostomates deal with worldwide. Let me just take the last minute here to demonstrate how the stoma stifler works. any questions? Well, to the CMS team, I'd like to thank you for your consideration and giving me the time to come up with this better product to you. And look forward to talking again. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, our next agenda item, number 8, is attachment number 14.103, request to establish a new Level 2 HCPCS code to identify an accessory used for jaw stabilization during positive airway pressure therapy. Trade name, TAP-PAP, nasal pillow mask lower mouthpiece. There is no primary speaker and no 5-minute speaker. Agenda item number 9, attachment number 14.99, request to establish 2 new Level 2 HCPCS codes, one to identify a hyperbaric oxygen wound treatment system for extremities, and the other to identify caregivers' time and disposable supplies used in performing a vaporous hyperoxia therapy treatment in a hospital, clinic, or home. Trade name O2 Misley. No primary speaker, and there are no 5-minute speakers. Agenda item number 10, attachment number 14.66, request to establish 2 level 2 HCPCS codes, one to identify a handheld, programmable, lockable, tamper-evident pill dispenser, and another to identify a medication refill pack. Trade name, Pill Guard Dispensing System. There is no primary speaker, no 5-minute speaker. Agenda item number 11, attachment number 14.67, request to establish a new Level 2 HCPCS code to identify ready-to-wear wet wrap therapy garments. Trade name, Wrap E-Soothe. Primary speaker, Ann McVeigh.
Hello, thank you for having me. My name is Ann McVeigh, and I'm with AD Rescueware. I am an owner of the company, and I own 50% of the company. But for the record, I've never accepted any money from AD Rescueware. It's actually been quite the opposite. It's been a labor of love. I'm here today to ask you to reconsider giving us a coverable HCPCS code for our products, so that insurance companies and Medicaid can help the children that are currently suffering around the United States with eczema. So we started in 2012, and our company manufactures and sells wet wrap therapy garments for the treatment of childhood atopic dermatitis or eczema, which is a chronic disease. We are the first and only U.S. company to manufacture and sell these products, and they were born out of a desperate need in our country and a growing problem. Our products are designated Class 1 medical devices with the FDA. We're sold throughout the U.S., Canada, and Europe, and they are specifically made for a medical treatment, which is wet wrap therapy for atopic dermatitis or eczema. We are the only company the only eczema company in the world using the fabric Tencel lyocell. This fabric has been proven through verifiable testing to be superior for eczema and sensitive skin. And our Wrap-E-Soothe suit is the only one of its kind in the world with fold-over hand covers that treat the hands of the children that suffer from eczema, prevent them from scratching. We have fully enclosed legs and no zippers or snaps so the children can't get in and scratch. Many are unaware of how miserable it is for children and their parents when a child has eczema or atopic dermatitis. People just think it's an itchy rash. Just briefly, what is eczema? Well, it's the most common chronic skin disorder in infants and children worldwide. and it's an itchy rash that normally appears around 6 months of age and can continue into adulthood. And childhood eczema affects the entire family. Sleep deprivation is a major issue for the children, and this causes the parents to have sleep deprivation, and this sleep deprivation causes poor family relations, poor work performance in the parents. Studies show that it causes learning disabilities in the children from drowsiness in school. And there's approximately 6.4 million children in this country suffering from eczema, and it's growing. One of the frustrating things about eczema is that it's very hard to figure out what the cause is. There's many different causes. It can be genetic. In children, it can be soaps and detergents, certain clothing, sweat can trigger it, temperature changes, stress, and internal and external allergens. And finding what they are is very frustrating. Eczema is growing at an alarming rate worldwide. A recent study by the CDC and the National Health, they did an interview, and between 2000 and 2010, as you can see up there, the rates of eczema are growing, and it's creeping. We've seen a lot of research that it's creeping up around 20% now. Here's a graph of eczema in the United States from 2000 and 2010. You can see those graphs going up. And here's another graph from 1997 to 2011. And if you look at that center one, that skin allergy, look at between 2008 and 2011. So what is wet wrap therapy? It is a medical treatment for a chronic disease, which is atopic dermatitis and eczema. We are a tool, our garments are a tool for the treatment, but when our garments are used with wet wrap therapy, we become the treatment. Wet wrap therapy has been advocated by doctors for over 20 years as a safe and effective treatment for childhood atopic dermatitis. This is from the American Academy of Dermatology. It calms the itch, it helps repair the skin barrier, it provides more restful sleep, it decreases the staph bacteria found on the skin, and it manages the eczema and greatly minimizes the symptoms. A recent study with the American Academy of Dermatology found in just 1 week there was a 75% average reduction in itch, and the children had less sleep loss. Improvements to their skin lasted well beyond 2 weeks of treatment. So why our products? Why AD Rescue Wear for wet wrap therapy and atopic dermatitis? Well, the traditional method had very low patient compliance because it requires the parent to wrap the child head to toe in wet and dry gauze. Try that with a 2-year-old that's running around your house. It just is not, it wasn't happening. And then doctors would recommend wet cotton pajamas, but that's really tough to do because the cotton gets baggy, loose, and uncomfortable when it's wet, and the children don't like it. So we invented and manufacture and sell now ready-made garments with superior fabric that has been proven to be superior for children with eczema. And our products, when used, make it quick, easy, extremely effective, and comfortable for the children. This is, again, from the American Academy of Dermatology on wet wrap therapy. It says wet wrap therapy has some drawbacks. This is the traditional method. It is time consuming. If you are treating a child, it requires a great deal of patience and supervision. Children tend to squirm when the bandages are being applied and may try to remove the bandages. As one parent said, it is not a nice thing for any parent to have to do. However, most parents agree that the results are worth the effort when other therapies have not been effective. And I recently spoke to a woman at the National Eczema Association about her traditional experience with wet wrap therapy using cotton clothing, and she would put a dry sweatsuit on top. And she told me, if I can just get through the first 20 minutes, I know I can make it. And that's not the case with our products. Our products make it extremely comfortable. Our Wrappy Sue suit, that's a full body suit with fold over hand covers, allow parents under the supervision of a physician to do a full body wet wrap therapy treatment in under 2 minutes. Our sleeves are under 30 seconds. Why is our fabric superior? Well, it's made with 94% Tencel, which is one of the softest fabrics in the world. It holds 50% more moisture than cotton, and it stays soft even when it's wet. It's thermoregulating, and it's an anti-itch fabric, and the 6% spandex allows the garments to stay close to the skin for a very effective treatment. This is a cotton and Tencel underneath a microscope, and as you can see by the Tencel fiber, it holds over 50% more moisture than cotton. And here, if you're looking at cotton, wool, and Tencel underneath a microscope, you can see why the children love our fabric for the treatment, because it's totally smooth, even when it's wet. And here is a dermatological examination of Tencel by Dr. Susan Njordist at the University Hospitals in Cleveland, and you can see Tencel as far as the itching score. Children love the anti-itch fabric on their irritated skin. Full body eczema is the hardest thing to treat, and many describe the itch as being similar to poison ivy. And due to hormone levels changing at night, the itch increases at night, which causes major sleep disturbances in the child and their family. So you can look at that child and think all of that eczema. Imagine that child at night wanting to go to bed and his whole body feels like poison ivy. A recent study at Mayo Clinic, they looked at 218 patients over 2 years, and their conclusion was intensive inpatient treatment with wet dressings and topical steroids was highly effective in controlling severe atopic dermatitis. And here's a photo of a girl being wet wrapped at the Mayo Clinic, a full body wet wrap. And here's before and after photos after 3 days of treatment. A full body gauze treatment at a hospital costs between $10,000 and $20,000. And it is common for the children, when the eczema gets out of control, they take their children to the emergency room and they will be admitted for a wet wrap treatment between $10,000 and $20,000. Here's 2 nurses at a hospital. Here's our Wrappy Sue suit. It costs $105. And it can be done at home by a mom in under 2 minutes. A quick note on why our products were developed. Well, my business partner, her child had severe eczema, and she was told by her child's allergist to do a homemade system, a wet wrap therapy. So she drove around town trying to find the products, dye-free socks and a dye-free sleeper. She couldn't find anything, so she finally got a sleeper and socks, and the doctor said to duct tape the socks onto so that the child wouldn't itch at night. And she came in the morning and looked in the crib, and his face was covered in blood because he was taking the duct tape and scratching the eczema on his face. And our products have built-in hand covers. Here's our Wrappy Sue sleeves for $22. They can wrap arms and legs in under 30 seconds. Here's a photo of eczema on a child's arm. And here's our sleeves that a parent, a doctor, or a nurse can apply damp in under 30 seconds. This is very common where the eczema appears on the back of legs. And this is how our sleeves work. And for leg, feet, and ankle eczema, we have our Wrappy Soothe bottoms. Nothing else is out there is like that because we don't have snaps or zippers in the legs so the kids can get in there and scratch. It's fully enclosed. We have flat seam technology so that the seams do not irritate their skin, and the feet and ankles are enclosed so they don't need socks. Here's hand eczema on a child. And these are our fold-over hand covers. And they're delicate enough on the inside that they can put their binky back in and when they wake up in the night in the crib. And for trunk and back eczema, here's our Wrappy Sooth top. So in closing, I just want to read a letter from a woman that called me on Mother's Day wanting to know if our products, we get these calls all the time, were covered by Medicaid, which I said no, but I was coming to speak to you, and if she wanted me to send something about her struggles with childhood eczema, I would be happy to relay it. It says, "To who it may concern, hello, my name is Mrs. Preston. I am writing to you today to see if your company's products are covered under Medicaid insurance or private insurance. We are currently on Amerigroup HMO Medicaid, but hope to eventually become more financially stable to have private insurance. After trying every other option for treatment, the PCP and specialists have excitedly tried to prescribe your medical wet wrap products for my child and were grossly disappointed when they couldn't. If we could get it prescribed, we could get preventative treatment, help needed to ease the pain and agony of not just my child, but many others too. Although I understand this is a great treatment for eczema, I simply cannot afford it. The doctors and my family are desperate for help and relief. There is nothing minor or easy about having and dealing with eczema. Atopic dermatitis is progressive, angry, aggressive, and very, very committed to stay. My 8-year-old has endured great emotional, mental, and draining physical and social anguish from the consequences of eczema. Now, with the many years of very hard trials and tribulations, I have come to learn to be more compassionate and empathetic. I only hope that you can too, so that not only my child may receive the help needed for treatment and recovery, but so may everyone who needs it." So that's why we're requesting you to reconsider giving us a coverable code for our products so they can be covered by Medicaid and insurance. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you for the presentation. Does your material has any medication or something like that? Because why you are saying it's a therapy and it reduces the itching, right?
Right.
So how does it do?
Well, our fabric is not impregnated. It's actually eco-friendly, and it's made out of eucalyptus pulp. And it's through the wet wrap treatment. So the eczema is so dry and cracked and irritated, and when you put intense moisture on it, and it depends on the doctor, we would prefer our products to be written by a prescription so that it can go under the supervision of the physician, because we aren't doctors. But we recommend the process that the American Academy of Dermatology recommends, which is the child soaks in a tub for 10 to 20 minutes, and it gets their skin very plump from the moisture, and then the parent pats the child down, puts the prescribed creams on from the doctor if there are any, and then an emollient, and then they wet our products and they apply it damp, and the moisture with the emollient and it causes intense moisture that helps repair the skin barrier. And our product has a wicking effect, so the moisture wicks into the center of the fabric and causes a cooling effect. And most eczema sufferers say that coolness helps the itch, and so that's why they get a more restful sleep. Any other questions? Thank you.
It is now noon. We will break for lunch. Please return at 1 p.m.